real full audit of an actual accounting may surprise people. I mean, it always gave the conspiracy people some concern, the fact that you wouldn't want to have people just come in and get it over with. Here, if you don't believe us, here, look, go take a look, add it up and see that it's all there. So I don't know if we'll get to that point, but I'll tell you, if there was ever two people that could get us to that point right now, it's President Trump and Elon Musk right now. Gold's up tremendously in the last couple of years. They haven't had a chance to shore up those shorts in any real manner. And I think this is all coming together, and it be described as a near perfect storm for gold.
For decades, rumors have swirled around Fort Knox, America's legendary gold vault. Is it full of gold, or is it empty? Conspiracy theories have thrived, but now, thanks to Elon Musk, the question is back in the spotlight. Elon Musk has reignited long-standing debates surrounding the U.S. gold reserves at Fort Knox, calling for greater transparency and questioning whether the gold is still securely stored there. In a series of posts on X, Musk urged officials to conduct an audit of the reserves, tapping into decades-old concerns about the integrity of the nation's gold holdings. The conversation began when Musk responded to a user suggesting he ensure the gold remains at Fort Knox. His reply was simple yet provocative. Surely it's reviewed at least every year? This question quickly gained traction, drawing responses from lawmakers. Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky directly addressed Musk's query, responding with, "Nope, let's do it," signaling his support for a formal audit. The discussion deepened when Senator Mike Lee of Utah shared that his repeated attempts to visit Fort Knox had been denied without clear explanation. Musk's response was pointed. Who is confirming that gold wasn't stolen from Fort Knox? Maybe it's there, maybe it's not. That gold is owned by the American public. We want to know if it's still there. The conversation reached the highest levels when former President Donald Trump addressed the issue while speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One. Referring to Musk's comments, Trump stated, "We're going to go to Fort Knox, the fabled Fort Knox, to make sure the gold is there. If the gold isn't there, we're going to be very upset." Although Fort Knox remains one of the most secure facilities in the U.S., the lack of frequent, transparent audits has fueled public skepticism for years. Musk's comments have not only revived these concerns, but have also placed new pressure on officials to provide clarity. Veteran market analyst Peter Grandich believes we are finally about to get a full audit of the U.S. gold reserves at Fort Knox, along with a revaluation of our gold holdings to reflect current market prices. Grandich made this declaration in a recent interview with Kitco News, during which he outlined several reasons why he believes gold prices are about to skyrocket wildly. As we present clips from the interview, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notifications bell for more videos. We appreciate the support and hope you enjoy the video.
Why hasn't the U.S. adjusted the book value of its gold holdings here, Peter?
Well, I think it's part of the fact that finally business people are at the helm at the moment at this country. Let's face facts. Donald Trump was a business person first, long before he was a politician. And Musk, I think, to me, Musk is the Einstein of business for the 21st century. And he's just a phenomenally man with such brilliance and, be able to do so many different things. I still can't believe they land that rocket back onto the pad each time.
Yeah.
About what that takes. So I think that's the one reason. And I think also there was a plan to monetize as much of the asset base that they can, because the debt is so huge. And obviously, with gold being valued at the books at $42, it doesn't make any sense to keep it at that level. So I find it interesting. I will say this, when you talked about an audit and even having it live, as long as it's not Geraldo Rivera going to open it up, because the last time he did that, nothing was there, and we don't want to see that nothing is at Fort Knox.
Could we see an official revaluation of gold to reflect real market prices at what's making new highs this year?
Yeah, I think that's coming. I think that's part of it. I don't think what people should do, Jeremy, is confuse what's been transpiring up to a few weeks ago.
Hmm.
The serious purchasing by central banks to a few weeks ago had nothing to do with what's happening. This is a separate issue that's taking transpire. Those banks were buying because they were preparing for what they view as an eventual change in the world monetary system, partly because of what's transpiring with BRICS. And as much as Trump wants to threaten that he's going to break their kneecaps if they continue, I think they will. But this movement is more, I think, related to the U.S. and what it plans on doing with its gold holdings. And therefore, I believe we will get that revaluation. And it makes sense because it does kick in almost $1 trillion of paying down some debt by the higher level of our gold holding. What I don't think is what people should be concerned about, and every once in a while I get an email still about it. Does this mean they're going to sell the gold? I don't. I think that's the last choice of theirs, to sell the gold. Look at countries that did and how they're hurting now. Unfortunately, your country, Canada, did, and I think they would like to have the gold back that they had sold.
Is the U.S. reshoring gold that may have been leased out? Could this be part of a quiet plan to backstop the dollar?
Yes, it is. And I would tell you, remember that audit also wasn't a full audit. They kind of looked in one area and grabbed a couple of bars and said, okay, let's go grab lunch. I think a real full audit of an actual accounting may surprise people. I mean, it always gave the conspiracy people some concern, the fact that you wouldn't want to have people just come in and get it over with. Here, if you don't believe us, here, look. Go take a look, add it up, and see that it's all there. So I don't know if we'll get to that point, but I'll tell you, if there was ever two people that could get us to that point right now, it's President Trump and Elon Musk right now. We already know this, Jeremy. The central banks who have been major buyers have been buying it on that basis. They weren't buying it for a trade. Who are they going to sell it to? Yeah. This accumulation that's been going on for several years outside of North America was going on because they were prepared for recognizing that de-dollarization is here. It's great what Trump says. I do think he's making a mistake threatening to break people's kneecaps, basically, if you don't deal with us. That's the very reason those groups have formed, because they felt that that's what's been given to them. I believe he created a great marketing card for the BRICS, but nevertheless, I believe they recognize that. Now I think the U.S. has come to that conclusion. I concur with a lot of good people who, a lot smarter than me over years, said that they demonstrated that gold had been lent out 3, 4, 5 times more than we had. And I think this is a shoring up, because let's face it, the people that were doing that was not mom and pops. These were significant financial institutions and players, and they have a huge problem here now if that's the case. Listen, gold's up tremendously in the last couple of years. They haven't had a chance to shore up those shorts in any real manner. And I think this is all coming together, and it be described as a near perfect storm for gold.
It's a hypothetical, Peter, but if a full audit does happen at Fort Knox, there seems to be two possibilities here. The gold is there, which could be used to revalue the reserves and strengthen the U.S. financial credibility, or the gold is missing, which could send shockwaves through the global markets. What happens if the Fort Knox audit finds that the U.S. has far less gold than officially reported? What would that do to the trust in the U.S. financial system?
Well, I think it would be tremendous, but I can tell you, all those people that used to talk about 5,000, 10,000, people's crazy numbers on gold that were crazy when I was buying at 1,300. People couldn't believe we can get to 2,000, but it would be probably one of the biggest evers, something far worse than the 1929 crash. If the United States, remember, world's largest supposedly holder of gold still, or doesn't have anything as nearly as much as it does. I can't even believe, as much as Trump wants to be forward and all, that somehow they have to not let it get to that view, because it would ruin everything else that they're trying to do. But seeing is believing. I mean, if there was ever a chance to have a real audit in my lifetime, this is it right now.
Yeah.
There has been a notable increase in gold shipments from the London Bullion Market Association, LBMA, to the United States in recent weeks. This movement is primarily driven by a significant premium on U.S. gold futures over spot prices, creating profitable opportunities for bullion banks. Typically, gold flows from Western markets to meet demand in countries like China and India. However, concerns over potential U.S. import tariffs have led to a scenario where COMEX futures prices in the U.S. exceed spot prices. This price discrepancy offers an arbitrage opportunity, prompting banks to transport gold from Asian hubs such as Dubai and Hong Kong to the U.S. market. As a result, COMEX gold inventories have surged by approximately 80%, with significant inflows from regions including Asia, London, and Switzerland. However, experts believe there is something much bigger going on. There has been speculation that only a big player like the U.S. Federal Reserve could be scooping up such large amounts of gold to shore up the missing gold at Fort Knox in preparation for the eventual revaluation of gold prices. During the interview, Grandich explains that this is the same reason central banks like the People's Bank of China and others have been buying large amounts of gold while simultaneously dumping U.S. treasuries.
Well, we kind of knew that for those that paid attention when the BIS made gold a tier one investment. That really opened the door for these central banks. And if you think about it, since that time, they became major, not only buyers of gold, but they've been divesting themselves of U.S. treasuries. They have sought other alternatives for their reserves. It also plays a role in the BRICS. And whether the BRICS stay a small offshoot group that works among themselves or grows much larger, as some of us, like myself, believe it eventually will, they will have to use something other than a fiat currency in order to show that they're trustworthy and be able to deal with. They've kicked around a couple ideas that will include about 40% in gold and using the other currencies of the countries. But nevertheless, what I think we need to come back to, and I know Bitcoin has stolen the financial media's attention and gold was pushed back to being a relic, but this is what gold has done for a couple thousand years. It's doing the things that a lot of people, including Kiko, have said for years. It's a store of value and a protection of wealth. And that's what it's doing. And now it's being done at a time when people are scurrying to get as much as they can of it, recognizing how useful it really is. I got to take this, that Trump is a shrewd businessman, whether you like him or not. And there's days I like him and there's days I can't stand him. But he's a shrewd businessman. And he may be recognizing that in some way we have to be tough at the moment, but we'll have to not try to beat them, but join them. And maybe there will be a world movement back to a gold-backed currency or some way. But one thing it's demonstrated again and again and again, it's worked for a few thousand years. And that's why people are going to choose something like that versus something that's only been around a dozen or a couple dozen years, is too volatile and too, swings too much and doesn't have the representation that gold has. And that's what I think is transpiring now. The people with real big money, they recognize that gold is going to be their way out and not something else. We'll find out a few months from now, Jeremy. The BRICS will meet again in the fall. Right now, they're still having more members join. Yes, Trump had said a few things. He said a lot of things about tariffs and taking over countries and all, which I think he's really out of place to do that. But a lot of his art of dealing, that's what he does. He blusters. He sets up a worst case scenario. So that way, when you do settle lower, you feel like you got something. And he was glad to get that little part to begin with and all. But I do think gold is showing what we've all said, and it's paid to own it. Lost in all of this, Jeremy, in this millennium, which is now 25 years old, since the millennium began, gold has outperformed stocks and bonds. Yet if you went into the typical financial service firm anywhere in the U.S., you wouldn't find gold in more than 1% of the people's holdings. Yet the things that they own the most, gold has outperformed both of them. I think a lot of people will act when there's a fear of missing out. I think when it becomes clearer what will be transpiring with this gold and why it's been moved here, even if the price is higher, people will be more comfortable about buying it because it will become more of a general talking point. Most people are followers. Most people don't lead. And I think that's what it will need. But understand this, and this is a very good point. When I entered the business 40 years ago, and 40 years ago, the stock market was viewed as one of the last places you should invest. For 27 years, it was stuck between 700 and 1,000, Jeremy. And a guy named Robert Prechter Jr., who no one knew at the time, came out and predicted that the Dow was going to go to 3,700. And people were scratching their heads in the early 80s. 3,700. It's never been over 1,000. No one could imagine it could go to 3,700, yet to 40 something thousand 40 years later. The same is about the gold price right now. Most people can't imagine, it really can't go much past 3,000. It used to sell just 800. We have no idea what that could be about because there's not as much of it as much as what people could want of it. Look what the buy-in has done so far to it. So I wouldn't put any top number on it. Yeah, you could pick numbers for short term, and 3,000's a round number. But remember, this is all new all-time highs. There's no real significance because we've never been here before. But don't think it just can't go higher because just things can't, because that's what people thought about the stock market for a few decades. And yet it went up, 30, 40 times the level that it traded for a lot of years.
The U.S. Treasury currently values its gold reserves at an outdated price of $42 per troy ounce, totaling approximately $11 billion. With market prices nearing $3,000 per ounce, revaluing these reserves could elevate their worth to around $750 billion. This substantial increase would enhance the Treasury's balance sheet, potentially reducing the need for additional borrowing or facilitating the creation of a sovereign wealth fund. Such a move could bolster investor confidence, potentially driving gold prices higher due to increased demand and perceived stability. The mere discussion of an audit has already influenced the market. Gold prices have surged to record highs, surpassing $2,950 per ounce, fueled by speculation and concerns over the actual state of the reserves. Analysts suggest that confirming the presence and accurate valuation of the gold could further elevate prices, as it would affirm the asset's reliability and the government's financial standing. Do you agree with this assertion? Please drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Also, ensure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications bell for more videos. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you in the next one.